Hey, what's up, Silas here. I'm going to be asking you guys a question about the Democratic Party in the United States of America. What if they just did not run this presidential election in 2020? This is a serious question. I mean, there's a lot to laugh about with this whole situation. They just had a rather bad weekend for the Democrats. They just had the mess in Iowa, which the Russian hackers must have gotten it started early this year and messed that thing up. And there was like this shadow company that they hired to do that. Anyway, there's a debacle there, and then the whole the whole impeachment thing kind of fails. I'm laughing, but the question is serious. What if they don't run? And then Donald Trump comes out and gives a rather excellent State of the Union speech, State of the Union address, with excellent stagecraft, bookended by just some hilarity from Speaker Nancy Pelosi with the no handshake thing. And I think the handshake is typical, but you look at that handshake situation, Mike Pence didn't put his hand out. I don't know if this was something they discussed before, that Pence wouldn't try his hand. But even the person who was, I watched somebody doing it after who was doing some commentary on it, and they're like, oh, he goes and he shakes the hands. I can go back and check and see if this is a common thing that the president shakes the hands of the vice president and the speaker. I don't remember. But she put her hand out, and Trump didn't give her the hand after handing her the speech, and did some kind of. It looked like he stuck his tongue out, like And I was like completely okay with not shaking her hand. She just tried to impeach him. She was very. She had the control of that. She could have done it. She could have not. I think she just weighed the thing. Hey, we've been promising to do this since he won the election, so we kind of have to go through this. I don't think she thought it was going to happen. Someone said it was just like throwing a Hail Mary, an 80-yard Hail Mary, and then somebody picks it off and then runs it back for a touchdown. And speaking of 80-yard Hail Mary, the Super Bowl was also on the weekend, and it was the Kansas City Chiefs, which is in the middle of the United States of America, versus the San Francisco 49ers, which is actually the city that Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, is a representative from. That's where she comes from. So that could have been a big win for her if her team won, but instead, Kansas City Chiefs won. That's Midwest America. That's more like Republican country and things like that. This is the coastal elites. So that's another win, I think, for Trump in that kind of situation. Another loss for at least Nancy Pelosi personally, and probably people on the political left. San Francisco is a rather left-leaning city. It's kind of known for that kind of thing, and some high left, just off to the left type of things in San Francisco. So that's another L for them in that sense. And then there was this kind of gaffe where where Donald Trump tweeted, "Oh, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. You've made the state of Kansas proud." And then people tried to make something out of it. I was like, it's nothing. Then people were like, oh, this is one of the stupidest tweets he's ever tweeted. I'm like, if that's one of the stupidest tweets he's ever tweeted, then he's tweeting a lot of smart things. That's kind of what you're saying here, because nobody's really going to care. I mean, most people kind of think this. I think the first time I actually kind of made that connection in my mind to be sure that yes, Kansas City is mostly in Missouri. And I say mostly because if you actually go check the map, it actually bisects the border. It's made up of some counties and things like that. And part of the counties actually is a Kansas City, Kansas, and there's a Kansas City, Missouri, which is most of it. And the stadium itself is in the Missouri part of it. But both states kind of rep that area. Where I went to college, in West Virginia, and there's no professional team in West Virginia, and it was close to Pittsburgh. It's like 45 minutes away from Pittsburgh. So most people there were Steelers fans. And if the Steelers won, they would feel like they won. It's not like if you live by Philadelphia, which is on the other coast, the east side of the state of Pennsylvania, and you live on the west side of the state of Pennsylvania where Pittsburgh is. If you're on the east side, and you're probably going to be a Philadelphia Eagles fan, you're not going to think, oh, the state of Pennsylvania won when the Pittsburgh Steelers won. You're just going to be like, no, our team lost and things like that. So there is that kind of thing, the cross-state type of thing where you still have that. It's like nobody's really going to care. Majority of NFL fans probably don't even know that, that Missouri is the home state of the Kansas City Chiefs. They don't really care. Most Americans, I think maybe half the Americans who are aware of geography and Kansas City would probably say it's in Kansas. I think it'd be that many. Well, it's not that important to any of. So coming back to the whole situation, so that happened. He gave an excellent speech. I'm looking at the things and I'm like, wow, they're not standing up for these things. They're not, at least they're not standing up for this girl who wants school choice, who's getting school choice, this young black girl, young 6-year-old. They're not standing up for this kid who wants to be an astronaut. They're not standing up for low levels of unemployment in these different demographics that are supposedly Democrat strongholds. They're not standing for all these things that he's talking about that I thought were just, in general, just pretty good things to talk about. He was just pointing out things that are actually happening, and you just see the Democrats there just sitting there forlorn. The women again are wearing the white like they did, I think, from the first one, and now they're getting more into wearing different flair and different little accoutrements, accessories, and things like that. They can't even buy fully into the whole white thing. They have to add color and look at me type of things. So for them, it's more of a fashion show type situation. And then toward the end, okay, Rush Limbaugh is also out there. He's a conservative speaker, and he announced that he had stage 4 cancer. And he's been very big for the conservative side of the United States of America. And he got um, the highest honor that a civilian can get in the United States of America, and was pinned on his neck by the First Lady of the United States of America, an immigrant. So he's talking about there's all these things that are just going against what the Democrats have been talking about, what Trump is, and seeing them behaving that way, seeing Nancy Pelosi behind him just the whole time, not just seeming just she just didn't want to be there. She wasn't. She was nonplussed. She was frustrated. She just seemed like, why am I even here? And Nancy Pelosi from last week, she had that famous little clap thing. She finished up this one with tearing up the speech that was given to her. Tear it up like I think it was at least three different pieces of paper. She tore them up, and I saw some pictures after of her going to the Democrats and holding them up and with them cheering her. And I just heard that there was actually some actual film of her pre-tearing them before. Now, for certain, that's never happened. I don't know if the handshake is a common thing, but I don't think there has been a situation where they tore it. And I'm okay with this. This political theater, I like it. I like it being out there in the open. I'd rather people just come out and be open about this and show their animosity. Don't do this whole thing where we're going to pretend. You just tried to ruin my career. You just tried to besmirch me and kick me out of office. I'm supposed to just bury the hatchet and just shake your hand here. I think Nancy Pelosi might have been thinking, oh, this is politics as usual. This is how it is. But President Donald J. Trump is an unprecedented politician. He's doing things in a different way. So that happened. He gave that. And then the day after, right now, he's just been acquitted. So that's happened. And it's just, there's a mess. There's a mess of the Democrats. It's a bad time. And I'm just thinking, I already thought, I had made a video, I think maybe even a year ago, just saying, I am pretty sure he's going to win 2020. I think I even called and said, he's going to win 2020. Now, I'm not even concerned. I'm not even that worried about, oh, is he going to win? Is he going to run? What's he going to do? I'm more concerned with how much is he going to win by. Is it like how much of a landslide it's going to be? And I just keep getting more and more evidence that it's just going to be a landslide. Who are they going to run? Who's going to be able to compete with him right now? So what if they just literally just didn't run? And I was thinking about this thing. Then this thing of DunkAroos came up. If you guys have ever heard of DunkAroos, they're these little treats that I remember from middle school and high school while being in the United States of America. They're these little treats, little cookies that come in this plastic dish with this cookie side, and the other side has this different dip, like icing, and then you dip them in, and you dunk them in. They're called DunkAroos. Had what's it called? A kangaroo as the as the mascot, and they something that just kind of disappeared from the wild. And then I saw this thing on Twitter saying they're finally coming back in December. I'm sorry, in the summer. He's like, oh wow, that's cool. I definitely would be more excited to come back to the United States just to get them or get them shipped here or something. But then I read this article of why the real reason why the Dunkaroos have disappeared, and there were some things in here that kind of reminded me of just the situation that's happened with the Democrats. And I'm just thinking, what if they just don't come back this time? What if they just say, we're not going to run, we're going to save up for 2024. We're going to keep our people in here, but it's not going to happen. But I'm just thinking as a thought experiment, what do you think would happen? You'd have to change the mentality of the people so much for them not to run, even though they're pretty much 100% sure they're going to lose. I don't think they actually believe they're going to win. But it's a situation where they would have to be like, we're not going to take this money anymore. And I think part of what's happening here, there is the chance of a Hillary Clinton swoop, which would be amazing to me. But I think part of the thing is they want maybe someone like Bloomberg to run. I think they would prefer this because most of the people involved in this, the media and all these people, I think they understand Donald Trump's going to win. They know. But if somebody's going to run, they might as well run somebody who's going to spend as much money as possible on advertising, because the media in the United States of America, just media companies get so much money from elections. Even just the people, the parties going around campaigning, that drives a large part of the economy. The actual election itself is a major moneymaker for a lot of people. So it benefits them to have the people who are raising the most money as possible to be the ones actually running. So I think they would prefer a Bloomberg or a Biden who can get more donator money than anyone else, than a Buttigieg or a Bernie Sanders, who's just too much to the left, I think, for them. I think that's my kind of mentality in thinking what's happening here. Although I saw Buttigieg has something like 50 different billionaires donating to him, so you might have a chance. There might be something in there. There might be some movement there. But with the Buttigieg thing, there was a lady who, a woman, let me not say a lady because the way she was behaving may not be so ladylike, but she wasn't lying when she said this. She said, "You mean he's got a same sex husband, a same sex partner? Can I have my vote back?" And then the Buttigieg's someone who was helping Buttigieg's campaign and keeping him in the towers was like, I'm not sure. We can't really do that. And she was like, well, you seem like a Christian woman and you seem really nice. There's nothing wrong that he's doing. You're supposed to kind of, but he's like, no. If the lady was like, have you read the Bible? I don't know if she actually said the Adam and Eve thing instead of Adam and Steve thing, but I heard somebody recently say that in reference to Buttigieg. But this thing, she didn't lie. This, in the Bible it says a man shall not lie like with a man like he lies with a woman. The Christian Bible itself is not pro homosexuality. I like the fact that most Christians right now don't actually use that and don't actually damn homosexuals just for that. But if you did, you're not going against the Bible. Well, anyway, so that could be a situation that happens. So let's get to this DunkAroos story and then let's wind this up and kind of show you why I thought this was kind of familiar. So they're talking about here, once you become an adult, this is from MAShed, once you become an adult and you have to worry about adult things like laundry and grocery shopping, you realize just how important the stuff of childhood was. In this situation, I look back and I think about how I thought about the Democratic Party and I was like, now that I'm older, I realize in what I was thinking about there about childhood wasn't necessarily completely right. I wasn't really looking through why I was supporting, why I thought I liked certain things. They say here, but seriously, how could a kid or a kid at heart resist them? Those little cookies dunked in frosting that just seemed sweeter and more sugary than regular old frosting. DunkAroos came in at the top of the cafeteria food chain when it came to just what you really, really wanted to score in your lunch. And then fast forward a handful of years, and they haven't just faded into childhood memories, but they faded over grocery store shelves too. Why? So in this situation, I was thinking the similarity was there's a lot of things with the Democrats, what they promise. They say, oh, free this, free that. Oh, don't you care about these people? Don't you? Why do you hate? Do you don't want to hate these people? Don't you want to help these people? And it's like, yes, these things sound good. These ideas sound sweeter. They sound better than just the regular politics that's out there in the world. But are they actually valid? How are they going to do these things? How are you going to get this so-called free thing? If something is truly free, does that just mean you're paying it for another way? Because somebody else still has to do that thing, still has to provide that service. So how are they paying that person to provide the service to you? Now, if they're just making money out of anywhere, where does that money come from? That debt, who's going to pay back those debts that they're incurring on your part? So these are the questions that I don't think you really ask when you're thinking about it without actually absorbing what's in there. Now, they're talking about the thing, there was a slow decline in popularity. And I think there has been a slow decline in popularity with the Democratic Party now. I don't think people are buying what they've been selling as much as they have been before. It just seems to be a slow downtick. So if I was them, what if they just decided, hey, we're not going to run. We're just going to get our ducks in a row, let the Republicans do whatever they have to do for this election, let it be Trump's kind of victory lap or whatever, and we're not going to take this major L that's going to knock us, I think, even further to the left and things like that. Because if you run somebody that's more to the center, more establishment Democrat, and they get trounced, that will get some of the firebrands to be like, look, let's actually take over this party even more. Is there a chance you divide the party where there's now like more to the political left, Democratic Socialists, and you just have the regular Democrats? Is that possible? I don't know. Then they had a situation. Okay, why did they pull? There's a problem here. There was a problem with the advertising to children. A huge part of DunkAroos' popularity came thanks to the kangaroo mascots. The original mascot, the one you probably remember, was named Sydney, and that changed around 1996. Though when Betty Crocker announced a competition to switch things up, Sydney was replaced by the more sporty Duncan, and many of us agree with Food 52 saying things just weren't the same. Now this is a kind of situation. The Democratic Party has tried this. They've had a certain mascot, not even just the the donkey that they have, but just their general mythos. What they were selling to people was a certain thing, and then they've switched it around, and they have started targeting kids. They've always been targeting kids going with the schools and situations. There's part of why Nancy Pelosi was against something like school choice. Is part of why the Democrats. Is part of why they said the governor of Pennsylvania or something like that. The governor of Pennsylvania knocked down, or was the mayor of Philadelphia, something like that, knocked down the law that was going to allow, this is just paraphrasing, the law that was going to allow funding for scholarships for people to go to charter schools, to pick the schools that they want to go to. Now, why would they do this? Somebody posted and said, "Oh, this is about actual racism." Like, it's not racism. Come on with that nonsense. People throw this term out too much. The Democrats aren't racist. Most of the people who actually are saying against schools choice and want more money to public schools, you look at their demographics. The most educated voters, and I've talked about this in a separate video. If you're educated, you're not going to care about somebody's education for you to vote on something and anything. You'd actually be able to actually get that information yourself. Education means schooling in such situations. But you look at them, these are middle class, upper middle class. You look at this from suburbs in around urban areas and things like this. You look at the schools they went to. I'm looking at the school I went to when I was eating DunkAroos and things like this. They were some of the best schools in the United States of America while I was in there. I didn't know that. So when I got older, I thought, this is what most people's schools are like. And I thought, why would people be against public school if they're like the one I went to? And I think this is the experience of a lot of Democrats. They haven't really met other people who went to schools that were a lot worse than they are. So they're thinking the inner city schools that your average African American middle class or below kid is subject to is the same. They think in the countryside people are just going to have the same kind of access to schools and resources that they have, when it's not quite that. It's not quite the same. Even though you look at some of these actual areas and things like this, and you look at the amount of money spent per kid in an inner city area would be a lot higher than the amount of money spent per kid in a suburban school that's doing a lot better, that's a lot better served. That's due to a lot of different factors: the parents and parental involvement, the distance of the school, how healthy the kid is, the support system the kid has. There's a lot that goes into this that counts that. The type of teachers that are even in there, because teachers have some selection on where they can go. Like a teacher will be like, I want to live in this area, so I'm going to go to this school and things like this. Or a lot of teachers are like, I went to this school district, so I'm going to come back to this school district. We'll get back to the teachers because that's the main point here. With the situation, they kind of think, hey, those schools those kids are going to are kind of like the school I went to, so why is it so bad for those kids when it's actually not? The quality of the school is actually a lot worse. And if you just give school choice, and that's the key thing, the school choice. If you go into the school choice, the teachers' unions are not going to have as much control and influence anymore. They're going to have to perform a lot better to keep the schools and keep the funding, because the money is going to go in there, but it goes to administrative costs. It doesn't necessarily go to the student directly. When they say money spent per student, they just say how much money is given to that school, and then actually it's not like, hey, we're giving this money directly to the student. So what if you give the money directly to the student in school choice, and then that parent can say, my kid has a $7,000 a year voucher, and I'm going to send him to the school that has the best results and things like this. And the positive thing with charter schools is they're not all excellent, but if they fail, they close. That's kind of what happens. With public schools, they have the unions, they have that government protection, that public sector protection. If they don't do well, they normally get more money. They don't close. So there's that competition thing, and I think the school unions, most school unions don't really want that. The teachers' unions don't really want that. So coming back to this thing, I think that's the key thing. Talking about the DunkAroos. I think that's what we were on. If I'm lost, let's just finish this up. I was talking about this. Okay, this is the key thing I wanted to talk about here. Part of the reason the DunkAroos disappeared is they were terribly unhealthy. And that's why I'm thinking the Democratic Party itself is unhealthy right now. This is saying, okay, yes, DunkAroos are delicious. That frosting wasn't like the stuff you get out of a can of frosting. It was so much better. But they were also so bad for you. You remember those little single serving packages, right? Preteen, you probably never looked at the nutritional information. So let's just do it now with the help of Spark People. A package of that chocolate chip cookie DunkAroos with chocolate frosting had 120 calories, 4.5 grams of fat, and a whopping 13 grams of sugar, along with absolutely no helpful vitamins and nutrients whatsoever. And I think that's what the Democratic Party has turned itself into. It's this thing, it's this saccharine, it's this empty thing that sounds good. I don't think some of these things sound good. This whole equality for all, that doesn't sound good. To me, no, we're not unequal. You're better at tons of things than I am. The fact that you're doing what you're doing a lot better than what I'm doing frees me up to do what I'm doing, which what I'm doing might be better than what you can do. These drawings back here, most people in the world can't draw like that. But because most people in the world can't draw like this, that's what gives value if I can draw like this and somebody wants a drawing like this. But if we could just all draw like this, then just be like, nah. So there's a little quality thing. Anyway, so this is kind of situation where I'm looking back then, and yeah, that's the thing. Where was the actual thing? I said, that might not sound too much, but let's take a quick look at the American Heart Association for kids. Between ages 4 and 8, they recommend girls need about 1,200 calories and boys need about 1,400 calories. That jumps to 1,600 calories for girls and 1,800 calories for boys, about the age of 9 and 13. And that's only part of the story. So they're talking about just the fact that these things are unhealthy for you. And then when you grow up, when you understand what you need, what does a growing country need? What does a political body need? And the political body doesn't need the Democrat DunkAroos. They need actual steak. They need actual, like, good, solid food. They need clean veg, broccoli, and things like that. Some boring type foods, some whole foods. That's what they need. They need some nutrition. And I think the last one here we're going to touch on is, like, when they encourage smuggling and friendship. They said across the globe, there was this thing where the DunkAroos kind of went away and the DunkAroos were still being sold in Canada. So the company itself set up some kind of website called this campaign called DemAroos, where it was targeted to adults. This is breaking the law, where Canadians who were willing to buy DunkAroos and then meet up, I guess, match with Americans who were willing to pay for them, could buy them, and then like they could, some American neighbor could sign up, and then that person would ship them to them, and that kind of situation. So that's kind of what I think the Democrats are up to now. Right now, they're like, we've tried everything. We've tried to find a way to things. Nobody's really buying this thing anymore. We have to smuggle in immigrants and things like this who are going to buy our stuff, who are going to be dependent on our welfare schemes and not really too wise to what we've been selling. And because we can't convince any actual local people anymore, so we have to find these nefarious ways to kind of get these ideas and things. It's a democratic socialism. It's like socialism with sprinkles instead of the actual thing. So I think there's a little mess in that situation. What do you guys think about that? Do you think there's similarities to these things? I am super more excited about the DunkAroos coming back than the Democrats. I'm going to be spending a lot of time kind of just going back and looking into what was happening over this last... When I focus on politics, I might talk about certain particular issues like this. But I'll be mostly focusing when it comes to the American election. Have some loose plans of getting back to the States. Might do more with that. I have a series called Trump Train to Magaland where I'm going to be going through the actual wall. That was these post-its on this wall in the New York subway. It was at Union Square station where these people posted things. I'm going to be going and reading and seeing what were people thinking and kind of think, okay, what would these people say about if they had to go again? Like, Trump's going to win again. Would these people come back and post it and post the same note? Or what did they say? Would they think, okay, I posted this then because I was afraid of this, or I thought this was going to happen, and now what would they say after these 3 years heading into the next election and things like that? So I'm going to be going with that. And then once I read some of those, I might talk about general recent affairs, political affairs, and things like that. And I'm also more curious as to what excuses the Democrats are going to come up with after this L they're about to take, because they're about to take a massive L. I'm wondering what's it going to be. It's going to be something like the Saudis have gotten in touch with Mossad, and then like Mossad has gone to infiltrated the United States of America through the media system and started the whole learn to code thing. And then when the learn to code people started the learning to code, and then that whole meme started and people started, oh, we gotta let the coding thing. And they're like, where are we going to learn to code? Oh, there's these online boot camps. And these online boot camps were actually ran by these or these North Korean hackers, hacksaws all over the world, who have actually faked themselves to be Russian bots and things like that, and then got in to the actual system, and then they're teaching code to all these Americans and things like that, and teaching them how to put these small snippets of code, at least backdoors for them to get in. And now that you've set up all these new people coding, all this new unregulated code out there and things like that, that has let the backdoor for all these Saudi, Mossad, North Korean, Russian influence to actually get in and mess up the election. Is that what they're going to say? I mean, what's going to be the deal right now? What's going to be the actual excuse that's going to come after they take this major L coming up? Anyway, so that's it for this video. Like, share, and subscribe. Let me know. This is a thought experiment, really. What do you think would happen if the Democrats just didn't run. If they said we're going to run in 2024, we're not actually fielding anyone. And this happens. There are situations where people run uncontested for seats. This has happened. I don't know if it's happened for the presidential election. I don't think it has. But these kind of things happen in lower levels of politics. First of all, what do you think would happen if that happened? And then the secondary question is, what do you think would have to change in the mindsets of people to even be able to contemplate not running? Okay, goodbye.